This week, we'll be talking about the 2018 Oscar nominations,
Twin Peaks on Netflix,
Ghost in the Shell,
and our feature presentation, Indiana Jones.
Let's go. Welcome to episode 6 of the Harsch Review, where we talk about film, TVs, and entertainment. My name is Sean, and with me is my brother Ryan. Ryan, what's going on?
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Not much.
Exciting week for you?
Yeah, pretty busy.
Yeah, not too much over here. Got a chance to watch a couple flicks, but I did catch up on the 2018 Oscar nominations. Did you get a chance to look at the list?
I did. I parsed through it pretty recently, actually.
Yeah, we'll spare everybody the details of going through everything. You can check out more on our website, theharschreview.com. But what stood out to you after looking through the whole list?
Well, what impressed me a lot was the fact that some of these movies are Netflix feature films.
Mm-hmm.
And that's showing me that Netflix is starting to become, as everybody is kind of suspected, to be a heavy hitter in the movie industry. That it's not just about movies on the big screen anymore that have a contention for these types of awards. So that, to me, it's pretty impressive to see that. It just shows that the quality of these films that you can get on your television in a matter of seconds is pretty astounding when stacked up next to these other movies.
That's a good point. I think that Manchester by the Sea last year was also one of the ones that was Amazon produced and won big at the awards. It's interesting seeing how the way that people engage and take our content is shifting from the movie theaters. And I think it's a big concern for a lot of studios of folks being able to get really good material at home and not having to go out to the theater.
Yeah, and sometimes the stuff you're getting at home sometimes rivals that you're seeing in the theater. So it just seems to me that the motion picture industry needs to really step its game up and try to draw a little more appeal. It looks like they did that with Star Wars and some other movies that came out last year, but nothing really too crazy exciting, honestly.
Sure, and I think that going to the movies and just leaving and going out is more of a pain in the ass than it ever has been. You know, in the era where we get Amazon Prime and everything just delivered to our house super easy, there's less and less reason to go out.
Yeah, it's an event now. Yeah,
it's a big event. It's very expensive compared to, for less than the price of 2 tickets, I can just wait, buy the movie, own it, watch as much as I want, unless it warrants a big screen experience, which I think some of these on the list do. For example, like Dunkirk, which is up for Best Picture, also for Best Director, which is something that stood out to me, is seeing Nolan kind of continue to get those accolades, but I don't believe he's ever really come through.
No, not yet, and we'll see. I mean, it could be his year. There are some contenders in there, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. That's one that stood out to me. And then I saw 3 Billboards recently. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
More of an independent type film, again, making its way in, but it could be the winner this year.
And I've only seen a few of the flicks mentioned for Best Picture, with maybe Dunkirk and Get Out. Most of the other ones are very recent in the theaters, so I haven't gone out and seen most of those. So they're my list of what I need to go and watch is expanding before the Oscar season kind of comes around to see what is the excitement about some of these movies.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of other things that are mentioned on there that I kind of like seeing, especially the amount of attention that Get Out is getting from Jordan Peele. I enjoyed the movie. I didn't think it was incredible. I didn't think it was a masterpiece. I thought it was well done. It was a good freshman debut for Jordan Peele directing. Are you surprised by how much attention it's getting?
Not really. I mean, again, like you said, it is an impressive feature film. It's well written. The acting's great. It's got a lot of obviously surprises in there, and it really took the movie audiences by storm when it came out this year. Honestly, it looks like so. I'm not too surprised by that. I hope it does well, and I'm excited to see what Jordan Peele is going to go on to do next.
Yeah, that's I'm the same with you. If this is his first flick, it's only going to go up from here, hopefully. Hopefully he doesn't go the way of Shyamalan and can kind of stay in the pocket and do a good job. I like that he picked something that was outside of his normal comfort zone. I like that he didn't put himself in front of the camera. Very impressed.
Yeah, it seemed like a small movie, but it has a lot of clout to it when it came out. So
he's got something to say.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he will continue to have something to say, just as long as he doesn't follow that traditional path that a lot of these new directors tend to make.
Mm-hmm. In cinematography, Blade Runner 2049, which is one of my favorite films last year, Roger Deakins is getting a nomination again here for the cinematography. I really hope he wins. How do you feel?
I feel the same. I think I'm a huge fan of the Coen brothers movies, and he's done pretty much all of them back to, I think, Barton Fink. And he just has a very distinct look to what he does. So I hope he gets some recognition through this film, because he really, he's never really done like a science fiction type movie. He did Blade Runner. It looked amazing in more ways than one. I think it worked well, not only just the cinematography, but the sound and the editing. So hopefully Deakins will get something out of this. I think he's got a good shot at it.
I hope so. That's awesome. Another thing that stood out to me was the awards that Baby Driver got nominated for. This is one that we'll be talking about a little bit more in depth next week. But if you've seen the movie, then it's no surprise that it got the nod for film editing, sound mixing. Those are just a few of the ones that really stood out to me and is a no-brainer. I think it's definitely going to come home with at least one of those. Where do you feel its strong point is at? In editing, sound, or editing or sound mixing?
I think with the editing and sound mixing, and I'll get into this a little more when we cover it on the next episode, but it's very much a musical type movie, and not in terms of just a lot of the choreography is punctuated by the music and vice versa. So it seems to me that this is where it will really pick something up, hopefully. I would have liked to see it get a nod for an original screenplay, because it's a very original idea, even though it seems a little cliched on the surface. It's very complex, but at least if it gets something, it's still going to have its fans no matter what.
Yeah, that's true. Too bad it didn't get the mention there. It's always just nice seeing something refreshing and not sequels or action hero movies. Not there's anything wrong with those, but typically you got to have a balance. You got to have a little bit more to kind of digest. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. Excited to get into that next week.
Yeah, me too.
I think the most competitive category, at least for me, is in visual effects. We've got Blade Runner, Guardians of the Galaxy, Kong, Star Wars, War for the Planet of the Apes. All those movies I really enjoyed. Kong is definitely on the bottom of those tiers, just because it's much more of a popcorn flick than the other ones. It's same old story, nothing new or surprising there, but still looked great. They did a great job with how they edited that. Blade Runner for visual effects is one of the ones that we talked about back in I believe episode 3, where the use of practical effects and sets and props was so strong that they had to rely on CGI as little as possible, yet still was able to create something really cool. Mm-hmm. Versus you look at movies like War for Planet of the Apes, Guardians of the Galaxy, or Star Wars, which are very dependent on visual effects to tell their story. This is going to be a competitive one. I really don't know where it's going to land. I personally think that Planet of the Apes might get the nod just for the digital acting that all the different apes have done. Yeah, but I'm not sure. I really have no idea which way it's going to go on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of up in the air, I think. I'll be biased towards Blade Runner, because I think they kind of made this very digital world, but obviously made it look a little analog as well. I think that was one of the commentaries on the DVD that I rewatched recently. So it wasn't like too far-fetched or crazy. They didn't really have to stretch out, but there were a lot of set design pieces, and a lot of the visual effects are very stunning in that film. But then you could say that about all the other nominees as well in this category.
Sure. Yeah, we'll see. And I think the last one for me that I wanted to highlight was, if you think this is going to be Johnny Greenwood's year. Phantom Thread, original score.
Yeah, I haven't heard the score, to be honest with you, but he's really kind of broken out of his mold as the weirdo in Radiohead, and just kind of made some really stunning film scores just for this one director. Really, you'd think maybe he'd find out that he has this talent in this area, which he clearly does, and start branching out and doing that as a more of a regular side gig from his Radiohead main gig, but. I think he needs some recognition as well, but again, in the same category, he's facing a lot of very formidable competition.
Yeah, if you would have told me back in the 90s, like, hey, you see that guy? He's also going to be nominated for an Oscar next to John Williams and Hans Zimmer. I wouldn't have believed you. So it is pretty awesome to see him in there. And he does have his own unique voice. So that actually makes me a little bit more excited to ump Phantom Thread on my list of movies to check out.
Yeah, even if he doesn't win, he's still in the category with those other greats. So I think it's just an honor just to be considered in this case.
Nice. All right. Well, any closing thoughts for you?
No, I'm just excited to see what's going to happen. It's kind of a close race between a lot of these categories and nominees, so we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah. So moving on, what have you been watching this week? Anything new?
Well, not so much. It's not really a new show, but I've gone back and I've watched this show. I know it's one of your favorites, Twin Peaks. You can see it.
Of course, it is
on Netflix. What do you know about this show? It came out a while ago, so
yeah, I appreciate the show, and I've really tried to give it a serious go to get through it. I remember I first started watching it maybe a year ago, a little less than a year ago, and then I kind of messaged you a couple ways in, going, "Is it supposed to be bad?" I don't,
Yeah.
But it is, and that's where you start to kind of see the genius behind it.
Yeah.
But it does take one hell of an adjustment to get used to if you go into it blind.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into it expecting anything serious, because there's a lot of like really offbeat type of humor. I mean, there's one scene where a guy walks into the room and he's singing, and then there's two other guys in the room. They start dancing around, and one of them jumps up on the desk and starts tap dancing. It's just kind of really ludicrous. But if you go in there, I mean, there's a lot of different angles in that show that it kind of almost gets to be like a soap opera, like a melodrama at one point. With the music and with some of the acting. But if you look at David Lynch's other work that he's done, it really fits in pretty well, I think.
Nice. And are you watching it again because oh, hold on. Todd's squeaking away again.
Oh, I thought I hid that toy away.
Yeah. Good old Todd. I thought we demoted his ass.
Yeah, well, next time he's going into doggy jail.
All right. Well, are you watching it again just because it's something that's in your regular rotation, or is this a movie that, is this a show, sorry, that you're going back to it with a new point of view?
You know, it was something I put off watching forever. This is a first for me to see it. So, I never really I always heard about it, never really checked it out until now, to be honest with you. It's not something I think I'd rewatch again and again after I'm done with it, because the first season's like 8 episodes and the second season's like 20 something episodes. And at times it feels like a slog just to get through it. Mm-hmm. And like, what is this show about? But it is interesting. I think I find a lot of it funny. There's a couple like characters in there that I've recognized in other things. Like the guy who played George Costanza's father-in-law on Seinfeld. He's in there.
That's a weird poll.
The guy from, I'm just like recognizing these random people. The guy that Schwarzenegger drops off a cliff in Commando, he's in there. So I mean, it's just like, I think the key word for this show is random. It's just a lot of weird stuff going on, but it is entertaining. I recommend it to people who like anything bizarre or offbeat.
Cool. And are you watching didn't they do something new? They released a new episode, or didn't they come out and put out a new season or something along those lines? Yeah,
I think they put a new season out on Showtime, which I guess I'll get to that eventually. I just don't see how they can keep treading the same ground with this girl getting killed. I don't know if there's more murders or more stuff going on. Who knows? It's kind of one of those things you have to just go into it not expecting too much and see what happens.
Gotcha. Well, let me know if you get around to it.
I will. Awesome. Yeah, what about you?
I've watched a few different movies. The main one I think that's worth talking about was iTunes had a 99-cent rental last week for Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know anything about it?
The only thing I know about it is two things: Scarlett Johansson, and it's based on a pretty popular anime franchise, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct. I went into it blind. I don't know anything about the anime, or I don't have any of the history or baggage going into this movie. which got very lukewarm reviews, but I figured I would give it a shot and check it out. I always like to kind of be surprised. If you haven't seen it, basically, it's in the near future, which looks very futuristic to me. It's kind of like a hybrid between what you would see in Blade Runner and The Fifth Element. It's kind of a tired point of view of the future if it's not original, and I didn't really feel like it was original in this one.
Like it's been done before, too many
Yeah,
times.
it's been done before. You've seen it in a lot of movies. I mean, even in the Star Wars prequels where they had their future, I thought it looked a lot better and more cohesive. This is one where, those large 3D billboards everywhere and people talking and doing that whole kind of bit. Same kind of stuff you saw in Blade Runner. Same thing. So
derivative.
I didn't feel like it had an original future. I didn't really know where it was being set initially. But to get back to where we're at, it's in the future, and this woman is saved from what is told as like a terrorist attack, and the only thing that survives is her brain. So they cyber enhance her into what they would deem as a perfect soldier. That's to basically hunt down and stop dangerous criminals.
Okay.
And so Ghost in the Shell is that she retains her soul. In the movie, they talk a lot about the soul, and then they mention your ghost as being one and the same, which I thought was kind of cool. Made me a little curious to explore that. But basically, she's kind of just, they jump real quick. They go into introducing you to this character and who she is, and then show you the very first sequence of her demonstrating her abilities, what makes her strong. So having a human mind but a robot body enables her to do android type stuff, basically.
Okay.
Really powerful, really good with guns, jumping around, flipping around, killing people, very focused, no fear. Anything happens, essentially you can just repair her. So it is a nice point of view with how they're talking about that hybrid biohumans and very replicant-esque, I guess, going back to another Blade Runner reference. I felt a lot of Blade Runner inspiration in it.
Okay.
But the movie starts to shift a little bit where there's some hacker that, and these are slight spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it's been out for a little while. There's a hacker that's starting to kind of infiltrate the police force and saying if you work with them, you're going to die. Long story short, now her mission is to go find this guy.
Is there a magic wand involved?
No, thankfully for your benefit, no magic wand. We know how passionate you are about those.
Oh yeah.
But basically, the puppet master is who she's hunting after. This hacker, and he's hacking into the brains of cyborgs. So if you have, almost everybody has some kind of enhancement at this point in the future. There's even a scene where a guy's got his enhanced liver so he can go out and drink more. That's what he spent his money on. But she starts experimenting glitches. She starts remembering her past. She eventually gets captured by the hacker. She learns that she's not the first cyber person, which is what she was told, and that she's part of some program where they've tried doing this with lots of other people before, where they're basically kidnapping people from the street and wiping their brain and putting them in these bodies, trying to build these prototype humans, because they say that's where the future of the human race is going, is our brains just living in these robots.
It just sounds like a mix of all these futuristic movies.
It is, and a lot of the criticism behind it is that there's a very heavy, it's a Japanese anime that I think came out in 95.
Okay.
And they cast Scarlett Johansson in it. They cast a lot of other people in the role. They had Euron Greyjoy from Game of Thrones, Pilu Asbæk, or whatever his name, I can't pronounce that name, but Michael Pitt, who was also James Darmody from Boardwalk, he was in it. And so all the key roles they've gave to non-Asian characters, which the characters really all should just be Asian. Yeah. The biggest issue I had is that she finds out who she is, and she goes back to visit her mother, who's talking about my daughter was. I was told my daughter committed suicide. She was a runaway, and it's like a nice old Asian or Japanese household, and she's talking to her Japanese mother, but it's Scarlett Johansson, and you're kind of going like, why didn't you just make this a little more authentic and put a Japanese person in this role?
Yeah, you don't always have to have name roles. And did this movie get any flack from the Asian American community at all?
Oh yeah, big time. And
like that Hawaii movie where the whitest white girl in the world was like part Hawaiian or something.
Yeah, it's a stretch. It's
Yeah.
I just don't. The whitewashing in it was very apparent, and it led to feeling less cohesive and more of a, hey, we think there's enough money there to warrant doing this. We're not going to fund it unless we can put some names in it. I guess it seems like the studio was not confident that the source material would be enough to draw.
Or you just kind
a
of
big audience.
name it something else and just take the idea. I mean, buy the rights and then just kind of disavow the Japanese influence and just kind of make it something different, which they didn't do. It just sounds like they were just going for some kind of dollar in the anime community.
Yeah, once the movie started picking up and going, which it doesn't really have a good pace, and you don't really understand or really care about what's going on, I kind of started getting bored a little bit, going, well, where's this going? I kind of saw the end. Most of the major plot points, I already kind of guessed that the main hacker was one of the failed people from the program who somehow survived, and now he's retaliating, and all these different elements of it. I don't recommend it unless it's something that you're passionate about, you're curious, or you have any kind of connection to the original. If not, it's like a C-. It's not that great.
Was it worth the 99 cents at least?
It's worth $1. Any movie is worth $1.
Is it worth
Almost.
$2?
That's pushing it.
Okay.
$2.
$2.
No.
$1.50.
Yeah.
Sold.
$1.25, see?
Hey, $1.25. Do I have one or two? Yeah,
so if you're bored, it's entertaining enough where you'll feel fine out of it. But as far as a movie that is something I would watch again, absolutely not.
All right. Well, I'm not going to see it based on that recommendation.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that sums up what we got new for this week. Let's move on to this week's new feature of Indiana Jones.
Do you seek fortune and glory, traversing the globe in search of ancient artifacts? Join Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark as our hero attempts to retrieve a Peruvian fertility idol from the Jovitos. Then travel to Cairo in a race with the Nazis to find the Ark of the Covenant. Shake the sand out of your boots and put on your suit as our Temple of Doom tour begins. Start with an exclusive dinner party at Club Obi-Wan. Then team up with an 11-year-old Chinese boy and head off to northern India on a mission from Shiva to recover stolen stones from Pankot Palace. Come face to face with Kali worshipper Mala Ram as he attempts to remove your beating heart from your chest, only to fend off the thuggy cult, avoiding a certain trip to hell. But wait, there's more. Your trip continues to the Last Crusade. Visit the beautiful state of Utah, a tour of Venice, and a quick stay at Castle Brunwald in Germany with the company of an old man. Side trips include a Nazi-sponsored book burning in Berlin, a Zeppelin ride, and a drink from the cup of Christ with an actual Knight of the Round Table. Your trip ends in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with the Soviet kidnapping, surviving a nuclear explosion inside a refrigerator, playing hooky with a greaser, and a game of Twister with aliens in a Mayan temple. Your adventure begins with the world's best archaeologist, Indiana Jones.
All right, so Indiana Jones is... I've said before that Raiders was my favorite movie of all time. I still stand by that. I saw this as a kid, really young, and I've been a big fan ever since. If you haven't seen Indiana Jones movies, you know who Indiana Jones is. That's how you know how big of a movie it is.
It's an icon.
It's an icon. The iconic hat, just the character, everything going for it. So we wanted to take a little bit of time and really talk about how did that happen? How did these movies become what we know of them today? Even people that aren't big fans of Indiana Jones movies are influenced by them, and you might not even know that. I'm excited for the future of the franchise now that Disney's got them in their pocket. There's a lot going on, and I'm hoping that there's more Indiana to come in the future once Spielberg wraps up his Indiana Jones saga in 2019. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's kind of dive into a little bit about the history of these movies and why I love them so much.
Okay.
So if you look back in time with the types of movies that were coming out, and you're looking at movies in the 60s, movies in the 70s, they definitely have a certain tone, feel, pace to them. You really kind of know where that movie was made just by how you're looking at it. And Raiders of the Lost Ark comes around in 1981. Changed cinema forever. Even more so than I think Star Wars in some respects. And that's because the influence of an Indiana Jones movie was more achievable by a lot of movie studios, a lot of actors and things like that, because it had a really good formula. And I think that what Spielberg accomplished with Jaws for a horror suspense type of movie, he essentially wrote the playbook for how to make a good action movie. And ever since then, everything that's come out has been influenced by Raiders of the Lost Ark. The action here,
bold statement.
It's true. All the action movies in the 80s, 90s, even all the way up until today, there's a certain template that what Raiders got right. They got the right formula. They did the right things. And I see it throughout all kinds of movies. So the reason why I like Raiders of the Lost Ark so much is not only just do I have an affinity for how well it was made and the scenarios behind it, but its influence on other movies, just like musicians. People love Hendrix, and they realize that maybe if you're younger and you don't listen to Jimi Hendrix, the musicians you do love were probably influenced by him or some variation. And that's exactly how a lot of things in cinema work. So
and that's interesting too, because Indiana Jones, the whole franchise, they are in turn influenced by a whole bunch of movies that came way before it.
Yeah, exactly.
Much good analogy. I mean, much like Hendrix was influenced by a lot of blues artists. You're going to listen to Hendrix. You're going to go back and look at those old blues artists. With Indy, you're going to be kind of curious as to what movies, what genres and serials and so forth influenced Indiana Jones.
And it kind of comes down to what was it that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg wanted to capture. Did they accomplish that? What did they send out? And essentially, they redefined what the modern hero or adventure flick is. They have a great pace of the movie. There's not a lot of dead air into it. It's not too fast. You get times to breathe. Feels really good as you go through it. They have one of the most, if not the single most iconic male lead in a single role ever. What single character that leads a movie has more weight and power than Harrison Ford does playing Indiana Jones?
You asking me, or?
Yeah. Who do you think? Like, really, who has more of a powerful presence than he does in those movies?
Sylvester Stallone in Tango and Cash?
It's a fighting second.
Or 22nd.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, that's even generous.
Yeah, that's harsh.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah, we get it.
Okay.
But really, is there anything come to your mind off the top of your head that you think somebody could pull towards?
Not really, because going back to your point, they wrote the whole playbook for all those movies.
I think the closest you'll find is maybe like a Schwarzenegger movie, Terminator, maybe from an iconic role.
I would say Commando.
That's not that iconic. I love that movie, but that's one of his sleepers. So that's what I really liked about it, is that all these action stars that have come out since then, they really are taking their plays on like, what did Indiana Jones do? Why was it successful? And let's borrow from that. You also had a strong female lead, and that was pretty rare, I think, for a lot of the movies, to where, you know, what Karen Allen did is she played the character Marion in Raiders. A lot of female leads before then were not tough. They weren't really fighters. They were a little more passive. They didn't play.
Got slapped around a lot.
It was just a very downplayed role of the influence that they had with the main characters. And so it was nice to see, you know, especially for me growing up and then seeing somebody that's a little bit of more of a spunky fighter and wasn't afraid to get in the mix of things. I like that. I thought they did a great job in how they cast the female lead in these. Whereas you kind of see Princess Leia in the original Star Wars, for example, didn't really contribute a whole lot in that sense. And then she finally came around and Jedi was a little bit more in the mix, but she didn't have the same presence as somebody like Marion did in Indiana.
She did kill Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, she did. She earned that one.
Strangled him.
Yep, she did. So they got a great male lead. So we're looking at a good pace for how the movie goes. We get the strong, iconic male lead, great female lead, and then we really come down to the villains. And this is something that I think comes kind of straight from maybe more of a James Bond formula, which, for those who don't know, Spielberg really wanted to make a James Bond movie. And this was something that Lucas knew, and that was one of the key reasons why he recruited him to do Indiana Jones. So
wait, who recruited who?
Lucas recorded Spielberg to film Indiana Jones.
Okay.
Yeah, they did it on the beach of Hawaii. And so it comes to him with the concept of what he wants to do. And Lucas did a lot of things right for Indiana Jones, and he did a lot of things wrong. No big surprise there. But really, we're looking at a James Bond formula. So you're going to see a lot of those little themes that kind of come through, where you have the quirky villains and you've got the lead role. So essentially, Indiana Jones is like in a James Bond role. They cast a different female lead in every single movie. They didn't want the same female in every movie, and that was another part of the James Bond template which they were following. But the difference is watch a Bond movie, any of the Sean Connery or Roger Moore flicks, watch those, then watch Indiana Jones, and the pace and just how it feels is much more cohesive. You're way more engaged compared to what the Bond movies did. They even have so much of the same formula where you watch a Bond movie, they typically start off with some type of scenario, some type of scene that introduces you to the character or introduces you to what's going on. And it's really not related to the main plot of the movie at all.
He's just always in peril or something.
It's just something going on. And Indiana Jones did that, I think, in an excellent way in the first three movies. One of the huge reasons why Crystal Skull did not succeed is they did not follow that same formula. Yeah,
didn't succeed because it sucked.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that one.
Okay.
But essentially, they strayed away from their working formula, which was a James Bond formula, and it didn't set a good pace for the movie. It just started off completely different, not what we're used to. So, for me, being introduced more to a movie like Raiders instantly sets the bar for what movies can do for you. And that's the movie that led me to love cinema. It's something I can watch over and over and over. And there's a lot to extract from it, just from a technical or filmmaking side, from an acting and editing side, and the way that music and the themes that are kind of coming in. It gives you a little bit of everything from
very, very quotable.
Yeah. From, great writing, great action. They give you a little bit of the romance. They give you a little bit of spirituality. They give you a little bit of the occult. They give you a little bit of everything.
Conspiracy theories. Yeah.
A little bit of everything. So really, that's what you get when Raiders kind of starts off. We're going to talk a little bit more about Raiders compared to the other ones as we kind of, just casually stroll through a couple of these movies. I'm just going to point out some things that I really liked about them. And the impacts that they had. But if you were looking for a good blueprint on how to start a new franchise and introduce yourself to a new character, that's what you're going to get in Raiders. Essentially, the movie kind of sets that tone. We're in the jungle. They got the cool little interesting music. It fits the scene walking through, and right away you kind of get introduced to Indiana Jones. You see him walking through, you see his silhouette, you don't see his face. So they start hammering that silhouette. They start showing you this iconic look, like this dude's different. This dude's a badass.
Very Humphrey Bogart, that moment.
Yes, very much so. So once you finally get introduced to him, where it looks like he was about to get betrayed by his little handlers down there in South America.
Now, one quick little trivia question. Who plays the guy that does betray him? You know who that is?
Well, there's two guys. One guy tries to pull his gun. Indy pulls out his whip and disarms the man, who splits off into the woods to ultimately meet his demise with the Jovitos. The second guy was Alfred Molina and Sapito, and he was assisting Indy in trying to acquire the fertility idol from the Jovito tribe. So as they're going through, two betrayals right away, so you instantly know it's like, okay, this is a little bit scrappy. The first part, kind of when it really starts setting up, and he's going in there, and you see the idol, and they set the tone right away with what this guy's all about. Grabs the thing, runs. You got the huge boulder, boom. Then you get introduced to the villain. So you are also seeing a potential MacGuffin in the movie. We'll get to that in a second.
What's a MacGuffin?
A MacGuffin? It's a South American duck.
No, I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, no, MacGuffin. It's a Hitchcock element that is something that he coined. It's essentially just a device that is implanted in the story, and think of it. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be an object. It can be a person. It can be a goal. It's some kind of motivator that a protagonist is going to pursue but you're not really getting much of a narrative explanation, much like maybe the golden briefcase in a Pulp Fiction. You see them in lots of different movies without even really realizing it.
It's a lot more of a distractor piece.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not
cool.
really a strong driver for the plot, but it can help move the plot along.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the end goal, as some may think it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the MacGuffin is one of those iconic things that is in every single Indiana Jones movie. So when you're
Spielberg was a huge fan of Hitchcock.
Oh yeah, so when you're looking at a fertility idol to the Ark, you're going to the stones in Temple, you're moving to the Grail in the third one, and you go into Crystal Skull in the fourth one. So all of these are iconic things that may or may not be real, but that kind of, when you walk into the movie, like, oh, that's what it's about. It's about him going and getting the Ark. And it's like, no, not really. But if you think it is, then you kind of miss the point of the movie.
It becomes one-dimensional as opposed to all these different facets.
Yeah, it's not like it's that was some of the things that the way that you look at a movie like National Treasure, which is essentially Indiana Jones. We're going to steal the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, yeah. That's
because that's totally possible. By the way,
I know, and they stole the movie formula so much from Indiana Jones. I actually enjoy watching that movie. It's not
just
that good, but it's entertaining. I like seeing like what it does, and but anyways.
It's a reboot.
Yeah, it's a reboot.
It's a reboot of the formula in a terrible way.
One of the things that really kind of comes back is as you start walking through this movie, it really, after you get introduced to the main villain and you kind of get a gist of what the main character is about, you really don't know where it's going to go from there, but you already have a good sense of who this person is. And you really have to watch Raiders with the mentality of, I don't know anything about Indiana Jones. And if you don't know anything about Indiana Jones, that's something you would walk away with that few movies can actually accomplish today.
And that's what makes it timeless.
That's why I think, because people just can't do that. Try launching a brand new franchise with a character that just came off a huge couple movies with Star Wars. So you've already got a little bit of that star power, but this is a lead role and it's a whole new genre that people don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's a throwback to a lot of the serials that George Lucas loved as a kid. So once you meet Belloc and you kind of realize this dude's a prick and he has to split, get on the plane and take off there, you get introduced to Richie, and that's the snake that's on the plane. But you kind of notice like, I hate snakes, blah, blah, blah. And that's a big part of his character that people know. So
kryptonite.
Yeah. There's good analogy. There's these little campiness to that, which is the intention, but they just do it a great way introducing you to these elements. So again, we're looking at just a template for what makes a good movie. And then we kind of move into the other side, which is Indiana Jones is just like Superman without all the superpowers. Where he's Dr. Jones at the university and he's all in his suit and you see him wearing glasses and he looks completely different than Indiana Jones.
Kind of nerdy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he's a professor. So there's that superhero element to it, very much like a Batman, Bruce Wayne kind of dynamic that a lot of people kind of miss. They don't quite see that the character that he is when he goes out is not the same one that people know him by. So it's a more obtainable superhero for people that like to, especially for kids that like to look up at superheroes. I think Indiana Jones is more relatable than most.
And that's why, as a kid, it really attracted me to this movie too, is because rather than Star Wars, because my thinking was 7 years old or whatever, like I could be this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you could be. I mean, all you need is a whip and a hat and a leather jacket, and you just set out into the great unknown and see what you can find.
And that's interesting because archaeology actually got a huge bump from Indiana Jones. He changed it for the better or for the worse, meaning that the archaeology field did get a huge flood of people that were thinking that it was all about fortune and glory. Just to kind of find out it's a little bit more like the beginning of Jurassic Park where you're just dusting off bones in a desert. But ultimately, there's a quote by Hebert, he's an archaeologist, that said that these films introduced so many people to archaeology, and you can document their impact statistically based on the number of archaeology students before and after the first film. So the field can actually do that. And they said that some of the best archaeologists in the world today say that Indiana Jones would spark their initial interest. And that's a huge legacy for George Lucas.
Interesting.
So I'm sure there's a lot of different analogies out there that other films can do or have that kind of similarity. But I don't think that a single field benefited as much from a movie franchise kind of saying like, hey, it's kind of cool to be into this job.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty neat.
I can't really think of any.
I'd be lying if I didn't entertain it as a kid myself. But again, what archaeology really is versus how it is portrayed in Indy is two different things, but we can all dream. So what
I agree.
Really going through, we have a couple more plot points to get on with Raiders before we move on. And that is the introduction to the female lead I mentioned before, played by Marion, where she's at her bar in Nepal. I don't know how you get zoning permits to do all these kinds of things. You know, as an adult watching it, I'm like, how do you drive traffic to this place? You're just selling booze to Sherpas, it looks like. And she's doing the drinking game with some big guy right away. And you could clearly tell that she can hold her liquor. As a kid, I didn't understand what the hell was going on in this scene because the dude passes out from drinking way too many shots.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching it, I'm like 4 or 5 years old. I'm like, okay, whatever. But you just go along with it. Doesn't matter.
We're drinking some really strong soda there.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and my favorite part of that whole sequence, if you remember what it is everybody leaves the bar. She's sitting there cleaning up the tables, and Indy arrives, and the camera just hangs on his shadow up against the wall. You see the hat, cool. You see them, and she's talking to him, and he's bigger than life. And there's a lot of symbology going on before it actually shows Indiana Jones. So much so that when the camera actually pans to him, you kind of think like, oh, he's kind of a little dude. So it is just an interesting thing to kind of note, is that he's bigger than life as far as what he means to people and what he meant to her. And instantly he's already apologizing to something for her. And we don't really know what. There's implied backstory by him trying to say, I don't know how many times I can say I'm sorry, and she's pissed, not happy, but he's there for something. So
you did her wrong.
Did her wrong. It's the way of the archaeologist, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, through another creepy villain that kind of came by, the German, they are now, quote, goddamn partners. Because she's got the headpiece of the Staff of Ra, and Indy needs that. So off to Cairo. And this is where
that's another MacGuffin right there.
Yeah, it's another one. So we move from the golden fertility idol. Then they're talking about this next piece that he needs, the headpiece for the Staff of Ra. And now we're looking for the Ark. So he goes there and he meets Sala, who's also a dwarf in another movie. Gimli, yes. And so they're in Cairo, they're doing all the stuff in the desert, and you start to get introduced to the Nazis and their pursuit for the Ark.
And I just really quick comment, I like also how all the Indy movies, I don't know about Crystal Skull, but they put Indy in a historical context.
Yeah.
So I mean, with the first one and the third one, you get the Nazis, and the second one, it's more about colonialism in India. So he's always in some kind of historical context. So maybe a little bit like a not quite like Forrest Gump, but Indy's kind of a player in the background and certain things going on, but he doesn't really affect history. He's just kind of incidental, but the history is going on around him and he engages in it in some way.
Yeah, I would say that in the Indy universe, he does affect history, and that would be because he prevented the Ark from getting in the hands of Nazis. So to your point, if let's say that this was something that really happened in the 30s, and now we're just seeing a movie made about these things, you would never actually know that Indiana did anything. But if he failed, then our world would be different today. So that's kind of the premise of how they put up the importance of weight of what he's doing. But yeah, I agree with you. I love how they infuse these stories during a period of time when there's actually something going on. That's awesome.
You get to learn a little bit too.
Yeah, you get to learn a bit. So in the deserts, there's a couple huge sets that they built. They built the map room where we get this awesome synergy between acting and music and the visual effects of when he identifies the map room to see where the Well of Souls is at, where the Ark is supposed to be buried. So Harrison Ford's in this little map room.
Who's doing the music here?
John Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just remember this was one of those first scenes as a kid where you're kind of going like, wow, that's awesome. And the amazement on Indiana's face when he picks the right peg, puts his staff in there, puts the headpiece on there, and then the light beams down on the map, says, this is where you should be digging. So I thought that was pretty awesome. It's a pretty powerful scene of just kind of seeing how all things work well together, and then the lens flares and the music and everything. Pretty rad. But it quickly moves to another huge set, which is for the Well of Souls, where the Ark is at. And that leads to the iconic scene of snakes.
Now, what is the Ark? What is that? Is that the boat that Noah was in, or what is that?
No, the Ark of the Covenant is essentially where the 10 Commandments, didn't you guys pay attention in Sunday school? Or something like, yeah, that's where the Ark, yeah, I know. Well, that's what he's telling the gentleman from the U.S. Army when he was back at Marshall College. But really, what they're trying to find out of the 10 Commandments, because back in the biblical days, any army who carried the Ark with them was unstoppable. So Hitler actually was a big fan of the occult, and big time. It's really fascinating if you kind of see how crazy he was. Really
There's
wanted to find
documentaries about it.
Really wanted to find it because he believed that we'll be unstoppable if we actually can find the Ark. Then
so that was true. That was based on fact.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they never really came this close. It isn't necessarily something that was in the desert. It's just he had people out exploring all kinds of these elements out there. And so that's what kind of works well for this story, which is another interesting thing that you don't really get. You don't really know much about Nazis in Germany and those things during that time when you see this movie when we were in the 80s as kids. So, the Ark is pretty rad, and it's going to kick some ass if you got it. Everybody wants it. Indy finds it in the Well of Souls after he's locked in with Marion and thousands of snakes. So
his weakness.
Yeah, and this is the how would I put this? Yeah, he's in a room full of kryptonite, but in this scene is one of the few times where you see Spielberg and co have a oopsie. And that was just continuity drives me nuts in movies when folks miss certain things, or you see an object shifting around, or somebody's tie or hat is different. And in this movie, there's a scene where he drops down and there's a big cobra pops up and opens up the cobra hood, and Indy's sitting there looking at it. It's a very iconic visual scene that I'm sure you probably would recognize. And they were able to do that by putting a piece of glass between Harrison Ford and this snake, and there is a moment where you can see a reflection of the snake in the glass. It's there for long enough time for you to look at it and see it, but they really wanted to lean on practical effects, but those can have their drawbacks. So you're not going to find many of those little moments in the Indiana Jones movies, but that's just one of those little subtle ones.
You're not going to see like a boom mic show up in the corner and pull away
not
really quick. Okay.
But this is also the first time where you start to see that Indy is a flawed hero. He is somebody that is able to achieve success just through persistence, not necessarily through craft. He's not the best gunshot. He's got a lot of guts and throws himself in there, and he can take a punch. So
he's got a little temper.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a temper. So when they start having the next scenes where he's, he gets out of the well and he's fighting that German around the plane, and another cool iconic movie moment, he gets his ass kicked. And you don't really take your hero of the film and run him through the muck like that as much. You started seeing that in other movies, like maybe with Bruce Willis and Die Hard and other similar fashion, but not at this point. I mean, the hero was always clean clothes, riding the horse, never gotten in any trouble. And so Harrison Ford really started doing that.
And later on, like I think the first Bond with Daniel Craig, he was getting beat up a lot.
Yeah, but most of Sean Connery and Roger Moore's never took a beating that much. None that I recall.
Tuxedo.
Yeah, hands off. But it is refreshing to see that he can take a punch and still kind of get through it. And I think that adds just an extra depth to it.
Yeah.
And Harrison's doing all his own stunts too, so he was pretty into it.
Does he still do his own stunts?
He still does.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Surprisingly, he's still pretty fit. Just a little.
He's great.
Quick,
That's great.
Just a quick note that, and you wouldn't think so, but when he left after doing The Last Crusade, which was the third Indiana Jones movie, and he started when he did Crystal Skull, something like 20 years later, he's still fitting all his clothes.
Wow.
So he stayed cut.
Superhuman.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how fit he was, but he didn't get fat.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Big old gut hanging out over his belt.
That would have been a shame. It'd been like,
yeah,
my
let's
hero.
go find these skulls.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on the bike, kid.
When Shia LaBeouf's beer gut is smaller than yours,
Yeah, you're in
got
trouble.
an issue there. Yeah.
And so really Raiders kind of takes you through, then they kind of tie it up and wrap things up at the end where the Germans all get nuked by opening the Ark. And that was another iconic movie scene. It doesn't hold up as well, admittedly, because of the effects at the time. They relied on a lot more practical effects to do a lot of the face melting and things that they did when the folks opened up the Ark. I think it's still pretty awesome. I think it ages well because it fits with the theme of the movie and the time. It kind of works because this movie doesn't take itself too serious.
No.
But ultimately, then it wraps up and kind of leaves you hanging. So I know we kind of just ran through Raiders, but ultimately, I wanted to highlight a lot of those key points about what I thought made this one of the best movies, if not the best movie of all time. I enjoy it the most. I can watch it anytime, and I always kind of find something new.
How many times do you think you've seen it?
At least 50.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I was at the peak of my Indiana Jones fandom probably around 2001, 2002. There was a point in time where Lucasfilms wanted to kind of reinvigorate folks into Indiana Jones well before we even knew that a Crystal Skull was coming. And so they opened up a lot of movie props that they were replicating, and I bought a bunch of those. I was able to buy like one of the 200 of the golden fertility idols made. The thing weighs a ton.
Ooh.
I got the machete that he used in Temple of Doom, a replica.
The actual machete?
It's exact same size and weight and can totally cut a head off, but it's not the same one. It's a replica of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like back in the day, you could just order this giant weapon. They sent it to you, so that was pretty cool. Same with the whip and a couple of those other things. And there's a lot of fan made things out there. You can go and buy an actual Grail diary from The Last Crusade that somebody painstakingly made and pieced together from images they saw in the movie. So when you're
somebody without a job that lives in their parents' basement.
It's possible, or they do have a job and that's it.
Ah,
yeah.
Now, did you ever do any Indiana Jones cosplay?
I have been Indiana Jones for a few Halloweens. I've got the hat. I bought the same hat that he makes from some place in London. It's like a beaver pelt, and then I had to send it to this guy in Hollywood.
Beaver pelt.
Yeah, I know. It's it's a beaver pelt hat. That's what it was. I got the Raiders cut because the way that the hats come, and this is me totally letting that inner nerd out, is very similar. Like the man in the yellow hat from Curious George.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like that creeper with the monkey.
Yeah, that big insane yellow hat.
That's what the Indiana Jones hat looks like before you cut it and press it.
So it looks like a 10-gallon hat. You get
kind of very similar.
Texas.
Yeah, it looks like the Arby's logo, and so you got to take the hat,
floppy,
and I sent it to the guy in Hollywood that was the same person that did it for these movies, and he cuts the brim and he shapes it and sent it back, and so that took like 8 weeks because I bought this hat for like Yeah, you didn't know that?
Yeah, I didn't know this stuff about you, Sean. This is
well, you were gone, getting all educated, and
yeah.
So I got the hat. That was a good $300-something spent, and then I got a Raiders jacket. So there's a place, and there used to be a website. You can check it out now. I think it's called like indiejacket.com or something like that. Indie Jacket. I just stumbled across it. And
is there a website called indiesboxers.com?
Yeah, indiesocks.com.
Yeah.
No,
Indies
I checked.
Man hammock. Okay.
Yeah, Banana Hammock Jones. And the guy that made the jackets for the Raiders of the Lost Ark and the other movies is just some dude out in England, and this is what he does for a living. Is he just makes Indiana Jones jackets for people. So
are they made out of beaver pelt?
No, this one's not. This is English lambskin. So
Ooh.
I had to send him all my measurements, everything, and then tell him what cut I want, because the cut of the jacket changes in every movie. So the cut for Temple was different for the cut for Raiders and blah blah blah. You'll notice, like in Raiders, for example, it's a big ass hat. The crown on that thing is huge. There's nothing you can wear in public without want to be taken serious. It looks awesome, but it's a big ass hat, and you'll notice it in Raiders too.
Weighs your head down a little bit too.
No, it's really light. It looks nice, but it's huge. It's this big ass hat. So they
Man in the yellow hat.
They did smaller cuts for Temple and a couple of the other ones, and the same thing with the jackets. But so I got the jacket, which was rad. I also needed to get Indy's iconic man bag, which I think he's probably the first person to wear a man purse. And It's a old German gas mask bag from World War I, World War II era. So
I'm starting to get remember falling down, like the guy in the store with all the Nazi stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm
starting to get that vibe
a little bit, but I was just excited to get all that kind of stuff because as a big fan of the movie, and then now you realize that there's like this underground market of collectibles and people who make things, and you can buy things from the film. Like I was way into it for a long time, so I found somebody that had a German gas mask bag, and they sent that to me. And I think that was right about where my collectibles kind of ran out. The well wasn't making a lot of money back then, and they started getting expensive. But I was way into it, and I still have all that stuff. It's just in a box somewhere. I should break it out or do something cool with it.
I thought you'd be wearing it for the podcast.
I couldn't put headphones over that big ass beaver pelt hat. Yeah, sorry. That'd be a little, if we were streaming, I'd definitely do that. And that's a good thing you do if you want to stay single forever.
Walk around all day with a big hat and a beaver pelt.
I wish I was around though in the 30s to where you could wear that and people are like, damn right. Nowadays you look like Indiana Jones. That's how popular it is.
Like you're going to Comic-Con or something.
Yeah. And it would work.
It would.
So let's talk a little bit about the movies that followed Raiders after they kind of came out with a very, very successful movie. They instantly were going to go and make Temple of Doom, which was the next one, which is a very dark movie for its time. Freaked out.
First PG-13 movie.
Well, technically,
I believe so.
It is, but it's technically was PG. And because they said it wasn't enough to be R, but it was PG. And then you're seeing a movie where a dude's ripping out someone's heart. So people are taking their kids to the movie and they're going, what the hell? Lucas and Spielberg were both going through a divorce, and they just kind of shit all over the script and wanted to make it, a lot darker. And Lucas was like, it worked for Empire, let's do it for Indiana Jones. But I think they overcorrected. Personally, I think the movie's rad. It didn't bother me at all.
It's a good movie.
I think it's great, and I think it holds up well. I get it at the time, but it works.
Like, God, geez, guys, we're not really putting our personal angst into this movie, are we?
Yeah. So
she ripped out my heart, man.
Let's put that in the movie. They're just going for it. She's a snake, I tell you. Let's put a snake in there.
Hey,
people don't know this, but it's a prequel to Raiders.
Yeah, and in time, right?
In time. So it's cool to see an adventure. They don't follow the linear thing, which I think is great, and another reason why it works. And the movie really started because there's a lot of elements that they wanted to put in the first one, but they had to cut. Spielberg didn't have the reputation for running super tight projects on time and under budget, and their ambition was bigger than before. So things like the mine car scene from Raiders was supposed to be in Raiders, but it appeared in Temple of Doom.
Okay.
So imagine at the end of Raiders, there's Indy and Marion. They're tied up on the post. Don't look at it. Close your eyes. Keep your eyes shut, Marion. And they open the Ark, and all the Nazis get nuked. Ark lid slams back down. They realize that they're free. They're the only two who survived the blast. So then they get the Ark. They put it in a minecart and go on a crazy ride to get it back to the wherever they're taking it. That's what was supposed to happen.
That's stupid.
I know, but thankfully it got cut.
George Lucas probably suggested that.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, 12-year-old boys would really like that.
I don't know how they would have worked it in. I think it did fine. But you know, the scene also in Temple where they jump out of the raft, out of the plane, that was also supposed to be in there. That was actually how Indy was supposed to get to Marion's bar. And so he was flying on the plane and then something malfunctions. So he grabs the raft, jumps out, lands on the hill, sleds down the hill in this raft, and arrives at her bar in a raft. That got cut. So
I want that raft.
Yeah, that's a kick-ass raft.
Yeah.
But Temple was a much darker movie. And like I said, they kind of go with the Bond format. They brought on Spielberg's future wife to play the next female role. And it's a good movie. I think that, and this is what people don't really give it credit for, is majority of all the iconic things from Indiana Jones are from this movie that people have been influenced by, but don't really know the franchise that well. They just see it as some cheesy thing. And I totally get it. I'm enough of a fanboy, but I'm objective enough to like, yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But there's so many cool moments that just kind of expand this character and his universe. And that's what I really liked about this movie.
Short Round's in it too.
Short Round, yeah. And
Indy, cover your heart.
Well,
don't look at eye. No time for love, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, that's exactly why Spielberg loved Short Round, because he said it felt like a 50-year-old man trapped in an 11-year-old body. So they stumbled across him in L.A. His older brother was actually rehearsing for the part, and Short Round was in character, and he was telling him, "No, you're doing it wrong. You need to do it like this. Do it like this." And then that kind of caught the eye of everybody else. So that's how he ended up.
Older brother probably hates him to this day.
Well, I don't know how much it did for his longtime career, but yeah, the kid didn't know anything about any of the indie movies or that whole universe. So I thought it was pretty awesome.
Good for the part.
Yeah, he did. It was a Jonathan K. Kwan, Short Round.
Okay. And the Goonies also.
Yeah, he did the Goonies, and I thought he was.
And that was it.
That was a little bit more entertaining for him there, but.
Slick shoes.
Yeah, there you go. Slick shoes. So a couple interesting things I learned about Temple of Doom is that they went out, scouted all their locations in India, said, we're going to shoot here. This is going to be Pankot Palace over there. We're going to use the inside of this building. They mapped out everything through India. And then the Indian government was like, yeah, no, you're not filming in our country. We think your script is offensive to Indian culture. You can't use words like Maharashtra or whatever they used and various things. And so they had to go elsewhere.
Monkey brains and
that's how they ended up in Sri Lanka and doing different things to film it.
Okay.
So and then they ended up having a lot of stuff on sets and using art boards in London to kind of build out some of the scenes. So a lot of the interior shots for that temple is all on sets that they weren't planning on doing, but they kind of had to change locations. So what I really liked about the element of Temple of Doom is where they started bringing in more when they get to like the Indian village and the people that are there, and there's a little level of authenticity as far as the characters going. Not everybody feels like they're an actor. They did some of that in around Cairo downtown with Raiders and a lot of the extras, but they still feels a little cheesy. So Spielberg was going for something slightly more authentic, and the shaman that they picked, he's like, you will go to Pankot Palace. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The guy can't even speak English. So Spielberg is mimicking and saying the lines, and then he was just kind of puppeting them. And he's off camera doing it. So every hand motion, every gesture, every word he said, Spielberg was doing that at the same time, and he was just copying him because Spielberg loved his vibe. But that's a kind of a nice, cool little moment that you kind of get. And again, we get that iconic scene with all the bugs inside and the 50,000 cockroaches, 30,000 beetles, all kinds of stuff going on, which is another cool element that they added to the Indiana Jones universe that they're going to have something. Yeah, you mentioned monkey brains, which is really just custard and raspberry sauce. I know. Sorry. But one thing that I did learn, because I was doing a little bit of refreshing research for this episode, was Molaram, right? He's the head honcho, high priest.
Molaram?
Yeah, for the Thuggies. And he's chanting, he does his little chant, which he's got a couple of them. And I looked up and saw, he's got Kalima, right? Shakti De. And that's essentially means spiritual power of Mother Kali. But he's got another one that he's saying, and it's like, Maru Maru Suarako Chamari Nochi Pe Lakun. And he's saying that kind of stuff as he's about to like rip his heart out, I believe.
And what does that mean? Go F your mother?
It means kill the pig, flay his skin, and drink his blood.
And okay.
So that's the translation.
Okay,
this is a PG movie, so I thought it was kind of rad.
That's like something Charles Manson would say.
Yeah, I was like, well, it's a lot darker than I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that must have been a rough divorce.
Yeah, and so ultimately, the movie was really fun. You get a lot more of the jungle and the temple stuff that kind of comes from Indiana Jones. You see the ride at Disneyland. Other than the opening scene for Raiders, this is the only time that Indy's been in the jungle. And he spends a little bit of time in the jungle in this one, but not that much.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think Indiana Jones, South American jungle.
Yeah.
Not really, but hopefully they fix that in Indiana Jones 5. They tried in Crystal Skull. Not so much. And so, yeah, you mentioned it came out as PG. And so you're taking your kid, people are pulling out someone's heart. You're going to throw them into a lava pool. There's all these issues, and parents, audience members were just kind of shocked at the level of violence that the movie had.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of horrific aspects, and felt that it should have been rated R.
Like voodoo kids and stuff.
Yes, clearly it shouldn't have been R, but there's, Gremlins and Temple of Doom created this new controversy of kind of going, okay, our rating system isn't good. And because it came out as PG. So Spielberg also executive produced Gremlins, for those who didn't know. And so Spielberg had to go to the current president of the Motion Picture Academy and said that we need something in between. And that's eventually how they landed on PG-13. So they're looking at like PG-13, PG-14, PG-2, R-13, all these dumb little things, and kind of came around.
RPG.
So this wasn't the first movie to be rated PG-13. Red Dawn was.
Another classic.
Yeah, that was the first one to finally get the rating after they retooled it after Temple of Doom came out. So if you see anything that's PG-13, you can thank Indiana for that. Yeah.
Thanks, Indiana.
Thanks, Man in the Hat. All right, so we've got 1.5 movies to get through. So let's move on to the 4 or 5 years after Temple of Doom. They finally came back and revisited the role. And this was Spielberg's admitted, what he said, it was his way to make up for Temple of Doom. So he kind of wanted to come out with The Last Crusade.
Feeling hard on himself.
Yeah, I think it was a little oops. We're a little bit dark. So he says his apologies for Temple of Doom, which I don't think is any filmmaker should really have to apologize for their movie. It's just put it out there. If you don't like it, don't like it. Who cares?
Yeah.
So I only wrote down a couple key notes I took away from this, because this is like when Lucas, he starts going off the deep end a lot more than folks expected. So so I just wrote down some of this more entertaining ones.
Sounds about right.
I think you get a kick out of some of these.
Okay.
So Lucas proposed the idea of Indy facing off against a ghost in Scotland while looking for the Fountain of Youth. And it was going to be called,
because that could totally happen.
it was, and there are some comic books and other video game type things that have used these elements. It was going to be called Indiana Jones and the Monkey King. So the name still fits within the Indy universe, but it wasn't The Last Crusade, and it was going to be the Ghost in Scotland. But they ended up. Here's the next part.
Scottish Ghost.
I couldn't believe it. I had to check. I saw this on several websites, so apologies for not the references.
It's verified.
It is verified, and I have a few of the books, like the ones that are coming out, like the making of, behind the scenes. So I went and looked some of this stuff up,
Nice.
It wasn't going to be a Fountain of Youth or like a Grail cup that was originally the MacGuffin or the main thing. It was going to be a peach of immortality. It's basically in Chinese mythology, they have this thing, the peaches of immortality. So
what?
Yeah, I know.
A peach?
Yeah. Indy's going after some special peach. So, and it was going to be themed
what are you
with the
looking for,
Monkey
Indy?
King.
I'm looking for a peach. Leave me alone.
There's so much out there. It was one of the, because Columbus was the person who was doing the original drafts for these movies, trying to write them and throwing them to Lucas. And Lucas is doing his influences and saying, here's what I think it should be. Here's how you need to. Here's what you need to bring into the movies.
If he wasn't George Lucas, I would have just carted him off to the nut house.
Well, yeah,
hey guys, so Indy's looking for this peach, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
and there's this Monkey
George,
King,
and then a Monkey King and a ghost in Scotland. Okay, George, we'll think about it. Okay.
Well, he got his way in the next one, but we'll get there.
Who's that guy?
Yeah. So a couple of the other
who let him in here?
A couple of the other script things to take away. That there was going to be a 200-year-old pygmy, a cannibalistic African tribe, and some college student named Betsy who Dr. Jones, who tests the limit of insanity, but he ends up, marrying her, which was other things. Yeah, there's going to be like a Katharine Hepburn type, basically.
That's appropriate to marry your students.
So after they got some changes and they're refreshing the script, there was a point where the Monkey King challenged Indy to a game of chess, and
was he a bonobo or
I don't know. I think it was what is it, a lemur type monkey?
Oh,
no, I don't know what kind of Monkey King, but yeah. So he's playing
whoever can handle chess pieces better with his hands.
Well, it's using real chess pieces of humans that were humans that would suffer the fate if they're captured.
Where is this movie?
I don't know, but this is how. Then they landed on.
I want to see this.
Yeah, it sounds
a peach and a monkey
crazy.
Playing chess.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we didn't get that, and we ended up on the Last Crusade, and it was going to be chasing after the Holy Grail, which Spielberg had some apprehensions about, and that was because of Monty Python, and he was afraid that when people would hear the word Holy Grail, they start thinking about a white rabbit attacking Monty Python. So that's what he said in a quote. So they went along with it, thankfully.
Good.
And yeah, it's a fun movie. It starts borrowing more of the pace of the first one. I loved having Connery in there, although when they filmed it, he was only 58 years old, which was 12 years older than Ford. But his character is supposed to be 75 years old.
Not really believable.
No, not so much, but their chemistry is awesome.
A little more believable than the title Indiana Jones and the Magic Peach.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. But I loved him in this movie. I think it's one of the, other than maybe Hunt for Red October and a couple select Bond flicks. I'm not a huge Connery fan, but these ones are pretty good.
Yeah. He was good, and I like the dynamic between the father son was kind of played out. They were obviously estranged, and they were patching things up by both of them doing something they love.
Yeah, it was pretty believable for the type of characters that they had, and it was also interesting to see Indiana all of a sudden be a little bit more like a kid when he reverts to around his dad, which I think is a nice flavor for Harrison Ford and his acting style. I thought it works really well. There's a couple memorable moments that they have throughout the series. One of the most funny facts, aside from Sean Connery just being a interesting one to work with, is they're sitting there's a scene where they're up in the Zeppelin and they're having a table. You're at a table talking, and he's like, "We never talked, Dad." And then he puts it in his little Grail diary. He's like, "Okay, so what do you want to talk about?" And then they don't know.
That's a good Sean Connery impression.
Thanks. It was terrible.
Okay.
Well, they filmed that whole, it was so hot in that set that Sean Connery just says like, fuck it. And he takes off his pants. He's like, it's hot. And he's like, camera can't see it anyways. So he's sitting there under the table without his pants
not
on.
Not going to see my enormous Scottish penis.
Yeah. And then, so Harrison Ford's like,
you want to see a
good call.
George, you want to see a Scottish ghost?
This is what it looks
Here
like.
It is. This is a Scottish ghost.
I think yours is worse than mine.
Well.
He's like, what are you looking at, Sally? And so Harrison Ford takes off his pants and they film that whole scene with those two guys not wearing pants. Pretty cute.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice. Pants.
Where's that cut?
I don't know. I would like to see it.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So anyway, that was a fun movie. They went and did a lot of different things in that one where, you know, there's the cutesiness of the franchise where he bumps into Hitler and he signs the Grail Diary. And there's all these like cool little moments along where you have the rats and all these little nice scenes. We don't need to talk about it. Hopefully everybody's seen it. It's a good addition to the franchise. It kind of resolved a lot of things and it didn't really end resolving any character story. It just was a good place to end. They didn't have to continue, but they did.
Yeah.
And we got Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is like the biggest tease of a movie period. Now, I'm going to be a little objective here.
Okay.
So bear with me. I was super excited for it because like clearly the band got back together and they're making another movie. When they released the name, I wasn't as jazzed about it. I saw this one down at the ArcLight in Hollywood on the day it came out. And I kind of walked out going, I don't really know. Yeah, do I love it? Where's it going to be? And so I really wanted to give it a fair...
Shia LaBeouf is the next Indiana Jones?
Well, what are they doing here? But like I mentioned earlier, a huge problem with the film is that they broke away from formula and they didn't establish it. I mean, the story begins right after opening credits and you instantly get introduced to all the main villains and the whole secret of the Crystal Skull all within the first 5-10 minutes. So they showed you all their hands right away. They should have had a Scottish ghost and they didn't. No Monkey King, no Magic Peaches.
Magic Peach, Magic Bosk Pear.
Yeah, the only cool thing is that they do bring back the old warehouse from Raiders, which I thought was cute. But so you can see,
like, this looks familiar.
They're trying, okay, and then you get the whole scene where he's at the radioactive house test site. They nuke blast it, and he hides in one of those old fridges and survives the blast. And then that's when you kind of go like, "All right, hold on a minute. They're pushing the boundaries a little bit. I'm still with you, but knock it off." Right. So that's what you're kind of thinking as you're watching it. And then it just progresses from there. There's some cool things. There's a lot of bad things. And
how much did George Lucas have on this? A
lot. And that's the problem is that
can't stand that guy.
Okay. So here's a couple of the issues that this movie had going with itself is that there's too many people involved, too many cooks in the kitchen. It felt like it was a cash grab. So much so like executives, they wanted Harrison Ford's whip to be CGI because of new safety rules. And Harrison Ford was like, yeah, that's bullshit. And he said it was ridiculous and was adamant about using a real whip. And he was allowed to. He knew how to do it. Why not? Sean Connery was approached about making a cameo and he said, nope, retirement is too enjoyable. That's what he said.
Good job, Sean.
Yeah. Nice.
I got to drink this scotch, you know?
So Lucas was all over this one. And he had lots of different titles. So the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was eventually what they landed on. City of Gods, Destroyer of Worlds, The Fourth Corner of the Earth, The Lost City of Gold, and The Quest for the Covenant. Those are all different ones that they were working with.
And the search for the Monkey King's Magic
Peach with the Scottish Ghost. So, yeah, we ended up on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Spielberg even admitted he didn't like the MacGuffin in this movie, or he didn't like the alien story. But he was a friend of George, so he was really doing it for George. I'll make this movie for you. Sure, I'll put a blemish on my resume. But he does owe a lot to Lucas.
Buddies, right? Yeah.
You know, Lucas kind of is like bats at the Mendoza line, 200. So
Yeah, he's the idea guy, but it's like, all right, buddy, go back home and enjoy your money.
let us do the editing.
And they put him on call block, and that's it.
I know. So you can already see that too many people were kind of getting involved. Tom Stoppard, you know who he is?
He is an English playwright.
Yeah, he was he did some drafts for the screenplay along with M. Night Shyamalan, which had some.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who also did a screenplay for it, and that was pretty neat. And Frank,
that explains why the movie sucks.
Yeah, and well, I don't know how much influence he had, but Frank Darabont did actually take a big crack at it, and his approach was going to have Kevin Costner be Indy's brother, and they were going to do something.
I remember hearing some about that.
Yeah, but Lucas shelved it, like in 2004. Was like, I don't like that direction. So they moved on in
I
want to
go with the Scottish Ghost instead.
Yeah, I'm looking for like this Scottish Ghost thing. So all of a sudden, that's how George Lucas talks. Like, he'd be like, Steven, I'm really thinking about this ghost element from Scotland. So what do you think?
Magic peach and magic monkey.
He eats a peach. Yeah, that would have been rad.
Steven, does this flannel shirt look too tight today?
Did I trim my beard too low? Should I? No.
Sorry that my flannel shirt isn't tucked in today. I was in a little bit of a hurry getting to work, Steven.
Yeah, that dude's so uptight. But a lot of respect. And
is this something 12-year-old boys would like, Steven?
So Spielberg's coming back. I do not believe Lucas he's not attached in any way other than just through personal influence for Indiana Jones 5, which Spielberg and Harrison Ford are going to resolve. And it's coming out 2019. They're supposed to start filming it this year. Harrison says they got a good script. It's under the Disney banner. I hope they hand off this torch to somebody else. I hope that they can take it somewhere.
Who do you think would be a good pick?
I think somebody like Chris Pratt would be a good Indiana Jones. I think you see a lot of those elements from like Jurassic Park and Guardians of the Galaxy. That kind of persona, I think, would be a good Indiana Jones character.
Doesn't take himself too seriously.
No, they need to treat it like Bond. Like, they need to not get, as much as I love Harrison Ford, like, they got to move on and go, okay, there's a lot to be extracted in this universe.
Dude, you're old.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But if they write the story around him being old, it can be good. They just...
Like Indy's chasing somebody, then he has to take a nap really quick.
Yeah. They need to play into that. They need to do something.
Hurry up, guys. I need to get the early bird special at Denny's.
Absolutely. He needs to be a grumpy-ass old man.
Yeah.
And very similar that relationship he had with Sean Connery in the third flick. That's he needs to play that kind of role. So I just hope that they can bring some life back into the franchise. I think, Chris Pratt obviously would, I think, be somebody good that could do it. There's a lot of good actors out there. I'm totally up for them bringing in an unknown and bringing some life into it. Hopefully not the guy that they picked for Han Solo, because there's rumor mills around him isn't so hot. But hey, we'll wait, give him the benefit of the doubt.
We'll see.
And that is we'll keep our ear to the ground on all those kinds of things. So that's just about to wrap up everything we talked about Indiana Jones. Hopefully you kind of learn some cool things about it, get a little more insight in some of the movies Ryan and I enjoy. I love this franchise, and even though Crystal Skull is totally the redheaded stepchild, it's really easy to pick on. They actually wanted to make a 1950s B movie.
It's the Godfather 3 of the...
Yeah, so if you actually watch it, though, from the point of view that it is a 1950s B movie, and when the things are dumb and cheesy, it was intentional, then it starts to actually be a decent movie. It just doesn't feel like an Indiana Jones movie. But if you look at it from that point of view, it still can work and be entertaining. It just needs it needed less Hollywood CGI polish and just a little bit more authenticity.
Okay.
But that's about it.
Okay.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I got a little something for you.
Oh, wow. A little present?
Mr. Indiana Jones expert, I have some trivia for you.
Oh, you can call me young Indiana Jones.
Okay, young Indiana
Thank you.
Jones. And this trivia, I know you've given me a couple of these already.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a little more harsh.
Oh,
Get it?
yeah, that's twice.
Yeah, I'm running that joke a little thin, aren't I?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give you a multiple choice option on these.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, hopefully I paid attention.
I think you'll do okay. You ready?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. When Marion tells Indiana, "You're not the man I knew 10 years ago," Indy replies, "It's not the years, honey. It's the blank."
Mileage.
Very good.
Ugh.
Yeah. In the Temple of Doom, how many Shankara stones fall to the bottom of the ravine?
2.
Very good.
Bam. Yeah, they fell out of they burned a hole in his gas mask bag and he was able to, anyways, go ahead.
Finish this quote. You can warn them if you only spoke.
Jovito.
Ah.
Yeah, you thought you were going to get me on that one.
I thought so.
Oh, you could warn them if you only spoke Jovito.
Jovitos. In which Indiana Jones movie does somebody try to kill Indy?
That would be, that happens in Temple of Doom. It happens when he is waiting for his little date and then he gets strangled. That's where Harrison Ford herniated a disc in his back. Somebody poisoned the dates in the first movie.
Yes.
And so
bad dates.
And in the third movie, he was trying to get assassinated by the Brotherhood that was protecting the Grail.
Okay.
But I know there's a couple other moments in the third one. So, I mean, all of them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Temple of Doom. Here we go. What famous song is sung by Willie at the beginning of the film?
Oh, dun. Anything Goes?
Very good.
Yeah, I had to just sing the rhythm for a second.
A different kind of question here. You have to tell me which word does not belong in the question.
Okay, let's hear it.
The making of the Indiana Jones movies saw the collaboration of Steven Spielberg with which other spectacular director? Which word does not belong?
Say it one more time.
The making of the Indiana Jones movies saw the collaboration of Steven Spielberg with which other spectacular director?
Spectacular.
Very good. and which director would that be?
Yeah, we all know who. I like how you set that one up. I was like, wait a minute.
Hey, why am I not spectacular?
I've only directed a couple movies.
Yeah, just a couple. All right, what is the name of the Gestapo agent that tracks Indy and throws Marion into the Well of Souls?
Oh, what's that dude's name? I know it. Hold on.
I gotcha.
No, it's like what the hell is his name?
He
also played Hitler, which most people didn't know. In the third one. So people didn't really connect that together.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like THOT, or it's like a 4 or 5 letter name, just like that. THOT, tot.
Yeah, you got it.
Which one is it?
It's tot.
Tot. Okay.
TOHT.
TOHT. Okay. What did I first say?
Tote.
Tote. Okay.
Or you said THOT, which would be Tahat.
Tahat, yeah. I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I
close.
knew it was some weird name like that.
Yeah, you're good. I'll give you a couple more.
All right.
As Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom opens, Indiana addresses Lao Che in the local tongue. Surprised, Lao Che exclaims, "You never told me you spoke my language, Dr. Jones." What is Indiana's festive reply?
Hold on. You never told me you spoke a lot. I don't tell you a lot of things or something like that.
No, sorry.
I don't know. I don't remember. I should know.
Only on special occasions.
Only on special occasions.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. That was a good one.
All right. Yeah,
so
not
it's my
bad.
first loss.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 more.
All right, let's hear it.
In which language did Indy have to count to 20 in before his father would listen to him?
Hebrew?
No.
Latin?
Greek.
Oh, okay.
That would be in which movie?
Crusade.
Very
That was at
good.
the beginning when he had the cross of Coronado. Yeah.
All right. And all right, I got one more for you.
Uh-huh.
Who is the diminutive speaker of the following quote? I keep telling you, you listen to me more, you live longer.
Yeah, that's the this more you'll live longer.
I could say it like the character, but it would give it away.
Dan Aykroyd.
No. Short round.
Short round. Oh, let's hear you say it like him.
I keep telling you, listen to me more, you live longer.
Okay. Yeah, I figured you're gonna work Dan Aykroyd into this quiz.
Chester Cobblepot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wrong.
Was
movie.
that on your list? Dan Aykroyd? No, Dan Aykroyd trivia.
No, but he is in the second one.
Yeah,
right?
he's in Temple of Doom. Most people don't know that. You don't really see his face, but you get his voice.
He puts him on the plane, right?
Yes, he does. After he leaves what club?
Ooh, the Cotton Club.
What? No, Club Obi-Wan.
Oh.
Yeah, the Cotton Club.
Okay. I don't know.
That was a valiant effort.
Been a long day, sir.
Okay, well, let me ask you. Is there you got any other ones?
I got tons. How many more you want?
Just a couple more. We'll call them on those.
All right. Raiders of the Lost Ark. What type of trucks did the Nazis drive?
GMC?
No.
Oh, Mercedes. Yeah, the
got
Mercedes.
it.
That's right.
What is the name?
Yeah.
What is the name of the last car of the train in The Last Crusade? It's also make a cool band name.
Oh, it's like the Kings of Leon. I don't know. It's a zoo themed one.
Dr. Fantasy's Magic Caboose.
You sure? I don't know. That'd be a good band name.
Maybe yeah.
Dr. Fantasy.
Maybe
That's a good question though. That's a clever one.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that.
All right, two more. Two more.
All right, two
Hit
more.
me.
Temple of Doom. Willie orders soup at the palace banquet. What flavor is it?
Tomato.
Eyeball.
Oh, she asked for eyeball soup? Yeah. Oh,
No, she orders soup.
Yeah,
and then
okay.
She asked for tomato soup.
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, it had eyeballs in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, last
Let's
one.
hear it.
Last one. What is the name of Indy's secretary?
That's a deep cut right there.
Uh-huh.
Marcus?
Secretary.
Well, Marcus Brody is basically the secretary. I don't know.
Irene.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So where did the name Indiana come from?
The dog. Right?
Whose dog?
Indy's dog.
Yeah, but where did the name? Yeah, go further than that. We named the dog Indiana. We go back further than that.
Yeah.
Where did Spielberg and or Lucas get the name for that from?
Did one of them live in Indiana?
No,
when they were growing up,
Lucas had a big Malamute that was named Indiana. And when he would ride around in a car, the dog would sit in the passenger seat, and it was this big ass dog, right? And that's where he got the inspiration for Chewbacca, and Han sitting in the cockpit of a Millennium Falcon is riding around with his dog Indiana. So that's where it kind of came from.
I like that. Not everything he does is foolish.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like he's bad. It's 200. He does a couple cool things, and then the rest are like, I don't know about the Magic Peach.
And
all right.
Magic Peach, you know.
Well, good questions. That was a lot of
Yes.
fun. Hopefully you guys found it entertaining. I know I did, and I will looking forward to more Indiana Jones developments over the next few years as we get closer to Indiana Jones 5, The Quest for the Giant Peach.
Looking forward to it.
Next week, we'll be doing a little bit of discussion about some of the favorite things we've been watching lately and a little bit more time spent with Baby Driver, which is one of my favorites, and I know Ryan loves it a lot as well.
I liked it.
So if you haven't seen Baby Driver, check it out before next week's episode so we can all kind of talk about it.
Yep.
Outside of that, I really appreciate you guys stopping by checking it out. If you've enjoyed the show, please do us a favor and follow us at Twitter at The Harsch Review. You can go check us out on Instagram or at Facebook at The Harsch Review. If you really enjoy us so far, make sure you subscribe and give us a review on iTunes. We greatly appreciate it. Can't do these shows without your support, so not taking it for granted here. Sincerely, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
And you guys have a good week. We'll catch you next time. This is Sean.
And this is Ryan.
Have a good one.
See you later.